Hello, and thanks for tuning into Town Meeting TV coverage of General Election 2024. My name is Romeo von Hermann, and this is the program or series for candidate forums hosted by Town Meeting TV in advance of the primary elections on Tuesday, August 13th. You can find us on all other forums at cctv.org/primary or the YouTube Town TV channel. On tonight's program, we'll hear from our candidates who are running, Chloe and
Daisy.
Berbeco. Thank you so much. I apologize if I'm not saying your name right. And so we're going to be starting a series of questions, and you will have an opening statement of 60 seconds, and we will be starting with you. Daisy?
Thanks for having us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I am Daisy Berbeco, and I am currently elected and hoping to be reelected because I feel like I'm just getting started, and I love this work. There's so much we still need to do in order to especially address affordability for Winooski. And I think the other key piece for me personally is leveraging my background in behavioral health in order to address the youth mental health crisis. I'm a parent, and I care deeply that our youth are really suffering. And again, just getting started, and hope to be reelected.
Thank you so much. And Chloe?
Yeah, my name is Chloe Tomlinson, and I'm asking for your vote in the August 13th Democratic primary for state representative in Winooski. I'm running because I want to see a future for Vermont where we have well-connected and resilient communities, where everyone has access to stable, affordable housing, and where we're leaders in addressing the climate emergency. But today, I'm worried that many of my friends, neighbors, fellow community members won't be able to find housing or continue to afford to live in our state. And also, right now, we're in the midst of reeling from yet another round of catastrophic flooding, which is just the latest in a series of natural disasters, showing us that the climate emergency is right here on our doorstep in Vermont. I believe that we need more representatives in Montpelier who have personally experienced how incredibly challenging it is to navigate our current housing crisis, and who are younger and who will inherit the impact of the climate crisis. I bring more than a decade of experience working in community development and working with folks to bridge divides across differences, to come up with tangible ways to work towards a shared vision for their future. And I hope to bring that skill set to Montpelier representing Winooski.
Thank you so much. And I forgot to mention that if you're tuning live, we'll take your questions at 802-862-3966, written on the screen at this time. We're going to move on to the next question, which is property taxes and education. This year, many Vermonters will see double-digit increase in their property taxes, and nearly a third of school budget failed on town meeting day. How would you approach education funding reform and property taxes for the coming fiscal year? Daisy, we'll go with you.
Well, I think I'd start with the fact that many of us are getting our tax bills right now. I've received mine, and I'm shocked. But the positive thing, if there is one in this tax increase, is that Winooski was one of the 3 lowest districts in the state in terms of the percent increase. So we have about an 8% increase. And the other positive thing is that our budget passed on the first vote. And I think that really speaks to the strength and the skills of the leadership at our school. And I'm grateful for them in being able to put forward a really strong and reasonable budget. I think how will I work to continue to address these things? I will work to listen to the recommendations of the Commission on the Future of Public Education, which one of our school board members actually sits on, Nicole Mace. So they've been charged via legislation that we passed last session to really look at how do we improve the governance and the cost of education. I'll be watching that they're looking at the fact that a significant portion of our ed fund is actually salaries and benefits, including healthcare. That's the biggest piece of that. So as someone who served on the healthcare committee, we've addressed the cost of prescription drugs, provider burden, and also expanded Medicaid during the last term. So I'd continue to do that And again, go back to listen to the reporting that happens in October of 25 from the Commission on the Future of Public Education. And I'm sure they're going to put up some really great recommendations. And I'm happy to see that they just met for the first time this week. One of their top recommendations to look at in terms of reducing costs of education is actually healthcare.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Chloe, same question.
It does seem clear that our current approach to funding education is not working. These kind of property tax increases aren't sustainable, and inherently property taxes are regressive, meaning that they're sort of disproportionately impacting low, mid-income working families. I'd really like to see us moving towards a model that's drawing more of the funding from income tax, and even pushing our income tax model to be more progressive and asking the top 1% of Vermonters to chip in more towards this really essential piece of community infrastructure, towards our school and the future of younger Vermonters. I do think there could also be other more progressive property tax models that we could explore, perhaps decreasing the tax rate for occupied home, or for primary homes, and increasing the rate for vacant or second, third, fourth homes, or folks that can chip in a bit more. And I do want to just emphasize that regardless of the funding model, we really need to maintain the pupil weighting system that was recently implemented, and that's helping us fulfill our obligation to provide equitable education to all Vermonters. And I very much, like Daisy said, am keen to see the recommendations coming from the committee and the study that was commissioned by the Yield Bill, and reviewing those recommendations and trying to draw from that for a more sustainable model moving forwards.
Thank you so much, Chloe. The third question is a progressive tax initiative. This year, the Democrats in the House proposed new taxes on states' highest earners and largest assets, including an increased income tax on earned anything over $500,000 or $500K, an increased property tax transfer on properties over $750,000, and an increased corporate income tax, rather. Do you support raising taxes on high earners, Vermonters? Daisy?
I do, absolutely. I think we have to head that way. That's why I supported the legislation when it was in the House last session. It actually, one piece of that bill was to help fund the expansion of Medicaid. So that bill did come through my committee. I strongly support it. If anything, I think we should go farther. I think the other thing is to look at pressures on the Ed Fund that perhaps could be elsewhere. So I think there's some really creative ways, and we've got great leaders in Ways and Means that are really looking at collaborating with stakeholders on how can we be more progressive in our approach to taxes.
Thank you. And Chloe, for the same question.
I agree. While I am proud to live in a state where we have a relatively progressive tax model, compared to other states, I think that there's more that we can do. Right now, the effective tax rate for the highest earners in our state is still lower than that of those in lower income brackets. And I think that it's only fair to ask those who are making, are super high earners to contribute more. And especially at this moment where we're seeing families across the state really struggling with affordability, it's a moment where we need to sort of rethink our system and make sure that we're kind of leveling the playing field in a moment when affordability is such a challenge, and wealth inequality is already wide, and it's growing. So this, would emphasize particularly the income tax would be on a small number of Vermonters, but would really help us to make sure that we're able to make critical investments that are needed for our state to be more resilient, healthy in the future.
Thank you so much. And we're going to move on to the next question, which is housing. This past session, the Democrats in the House proposed spending an additional $100 million per year for 10 years on publicly subsidized affordable housing. This level of investment was not passed in the Senate. Would you support this level of public investment in housing? And is our housing crisis due to more regulatory failure or underinvestment, Representative Daisy?
Yes, I supported that. When it passed the House, I voted for it. And the reason why is when I ran 2 years ago, I made it really clear that I believe housing is healthcare. I think it's at the center of our wellness, our well-being, and we have to start there when we're looking at social determinants of health if we really want the future that Chloe so nicely described. I would just note that housing, I recognize it as such a complex issue, and if there were an easy answer to how to resolve our housing crisis in Vermont, we would have done it already. And I think key to our continued progress on addressing the housing crisis is the fact that investments we make in housing have a better return on that investment than almost any other area other than perhaps education. So I think it's a wise area that and also critical area at the moment to continue to invest in. As far as whether it's a regulatory failure, I think that Act 250 as a land use regulation law has actually been pretty successful. So now we need to consider whether all those pieces still apply and continue to make reforms on Act 250 where necessary. We have started that, and again, another reason I want to be reelected is to continue that work that the legislature did last session on Act 250 reform and land use regulation.
Thank you. And Chloe, same question.
Yes, I agree that we need really substantial investments in building more affordable housing in our state to address our housing crisis. But I also want to bring up another really critical element to addressing our housing crisis is renter protections. And in Winooski, we're 70% of our community are renters, and I really want to see that we're advancing some basic renter protections that prevent people from being displaced from their homes in the first place. It's really scary to lose your home right now because it's really hard to find housing that's affordable, that's on the market, that's available to rent. And so I think we really need to make sure that we implement policies like just cause eviction, which prevent eviction without cause. I'd also like to see us have a statewide rental registry, which would enable, which we have in Winooski, we have a citywide rental registry, but statewide, there's big opportunities for us if we do that, both to support landlords and tenants and get data that we need in order to make really thoughtful, intentional policy decisions about housing if we can better understand our rental housing stock. And in terms of investing in developing more affordable housing, like I said, I definitely support that level of investment, but would want to, be really thoughtful about where that money is going and what kind of housing we're investing in to make sure that we're getting to truly or permanently affordable housing, and also that we're incentivizing the type of housing stock that we need for communities, including 3+ bedroom units that are a good fit for families. So overall, yes, I support that level of investment, but want to make sure that we're moving towards permanently affordable housing, housing that's suitable for families, and also pathways to home ownership.
Thank you, Chloe, for that answer. The next question is emergency shelters. So Vermont reported 3,295 people experiencing homelessness in 2023. Up from about 1,110 in 2020. This summer, the state is rolling back its pandemic-era emergency shelter capacity across the state and pushing 100 more people, or Vermonters in general, onto the streets. How would you approach the need for emergency shelters, and how should the state pay for it? We'll start with the representative again.
I think similar to the previous question is, or central to it is, there's not an easy answer, or we would have already done it. Is it worth the investment? Absolutely. I feel like I'm going to be repetitive here, but housing is healthcare. I believe every human has a right to their health, wellness, and we should be doing more to invest in helping folks do that. Yeah, I think I've already pretty much spoken to this.
Appreciate that. Chloe?
So the hotel voucher program, or the general assistance housing program, was absolutely critical, but also a bit of a Band-Aid approach to a huge challenge. And I don't support the administration cutting that program off without a clear sort of sustainable plan for what would happen to those vulnerable Vermonters moving forward. And many of those folks, from my understanding, were actively looking for affordable housing, but simply unable to find it, which brings us to the point that homelessness is a housing issue. And as Daisy said, we're kind of circling back to we need more affordable housing. And we also need renter protections in order to make sure that folks who have stable housing aren't displaced and find themselves on the streets. And I would also support more investment in social workers and folks who can help people navigate these complicated systems for getting the support that they need. In terms of how we pay for it, the income tax surcharge that we spoke about earlier that would only impact Vermonters who are making more than $500,000 a year was estimated that it could generate more than $70 million a year for Vermont. And so I think that there are the resources here in the state. It's a matter of priorities, and housing is a human right that we absolutely should be investing in.
Thank you, Chloe. We're going to move on to the next question, which is overdose crisis, which I think that is prevalent in our state, as well as in the nation as well. So 231 people died from an overdose in Vermont in 2023. About 95% of overdoses involving fentanyl. What must be done to prevent overdoses and promote addiction recovery programs in Vermont? You can go ahead, Daisy.
I think foundational to stopping this crisis and eliminating overdoses in Vermont is that we have to be a more compassionate society. Addiction is not a crime, it's an illness. And we need to invest in opening up greater pathways to getting help when people are ready to do it. I supported overdose prevention sites. I think at this point we need to do all that we can to support people who are sick and not criminalize it. We also need to do more public education on substance use and why people become addicted. I think that will help root people in a better understanding of what's going on with their neighbors who are actually sick. And this is really intimately linked with the housing crisis, right? And addressing social determinants of health, and housing has to happen first. We have made some promising investments recently back into the Blueprint for Health, which was the source of the hub and spoke model that so many people were getting treatment and still are getting treatment for substance use issues through. So we made another $42 million investment in that system so that we can beef up both mental health and substance use services through the hub and spoke, which is an already established network. And I think once we're addressing mental health issues, which are often co-occurring with substance use issues, we'll be giving folks the support that they need. We just need to improve the access.
Thank you so much. Chloe?
The opioid epidemic has been absolutely devastating to communities across the state. It feels like almost every family has been touched by this in some way. And I really appreciate Daisy's point that we need to respond to this with compassion. This is a public health issue. And we need to treat it as such. Substance use disorder is a public health issue. I was really grateful to see the leadership that brought the overdose prevention centers to the past session, and to see that passing, and exciting to look ahead towards the pilot program that will be in Burlington. Would be interested in also exploring more holistic programs that can support people along the continuum of care. There's some really great examples in Vermont. Jenna's Promise is a really excellent one, and I think we could draw from learnings from a variety of programs to make sure that we're providing services to people who are in great moments of need and crisis. And I really support us, working urgently on making sure that we're minimizing these preventable tragedies.
Thank you, Chloe. We're going to move on to the next question, which is the criminal justice. This past session, lawmakers increased judicial staff and increased retail theft penalties and expanded restorative justice practices in Vermont. What would be your priorities to advance public safety and criminal justice reform in the state? Madam Representative, go ahead.
Well, I'm already involved with several commissions and boards that are working on justice system reform. One of them is the Prison Reform or Research and Innovation Network, which is a branch of the Urban Institute, and it's a wonderful group of people across the Department of Corrections and the administration, the legislature, and the judicial branch. So continuing that work in order to really poke at where can we borrow strategies and approaches that are proving successful in other states. The other place that I'm working on is with the judicial mental health in the courts, which is looking at pretrial diversion for folks. So how can we reduce folks that are going in and rather divert them to care or treatment that they need in order to address the issues that may be the cause of some of the criminal activity. The third one is around a commission on the national Supreme Court justices, which Chief Reiber is actually the chair of, which looks at behavioral health funding. So we know that often folks who are criminally involved and have behavioral health issues are not placed in a place where there's not going to be perpetuating recidivism. So I think addressing both folks before they are sentenced, addressing folks who are inappropriately placed in our prisons. And lastly, I just want to note that, we recently advocated, we being me and some other healthcare-minded legislators, for the administration to extend their Medicaid waiver so that folks who are incarcerated can get the substance use treatment that they need prior to their release. Previously, Medicaid didn't allow it, but just want to say kudos to the Department of Health for actually pursuing that waiver, and I think it's important to be sure that we support the health care for folks who are incarcerated.
Thank you so much. Chloe, the same question.
Really grateful and proud to see the work from the past session and the bill that was passed to expand restorative justice programming across the state. I deeply believe in restorative approaches to justice and also investing in prevention. And want to be clear that I don't support private prisons or incarcerating Vermonters outside of Vermont. In terms of other public safety priorities, I think we've seen some really promising models of complementing law enforcement with social outreach workers in order to address calls that are more related to mental health or physical health in different ways. And I think that we should be doing more, particularly on the state level, to make sure that we're investing in and supporting the organizations that are complementing law enforcement, such as the Howard Center and similar social service providers, and the outreach workers who are doing that really essential work, and making sure that they're appropriately compensated and well supported in their efforts. I also, related to public safety, support implementing a statewide emergency dispatch service in order to help reduce call waits and also to encourage more mutual aid between towns and to better support dispatch workers as well. Thank
you, Chloe. And we're going to move on to the next question, which is climate change. I think that's a very interesting topic in Vermont. So, Vermont's greenhouse gas emissions per capita are among the highest in the Northeast, driven largely by heating and transportation. What is your plan to reduce Vermont's greenhouse emissions in these sectors? You can go ahead, Chloe, this time.
All right, great. So there's some efforts underway many efforts underway to reduce emissions already that I think we could push even further. One is our weatherization efforts. I think there's been good uptake on weatherization programs generally, but sort of less uptake than would be ideal for rental properties. And there's a big opportunity there, both in terms of reducing emissions, but also in cost savings for renters on heating and cooling costs, which continue to rise. Also, I think we can continue to invest in green transportation. both supporting our mass transit systems, increasing access to e-bikes. I think the e-bike subsidy program might have lapsed in funding, and that's a big opportunity. Both of those are big opportunities for us to make sure that we're reducing miles driven as a core metric in our work towards decreasing emissions. And those are really important programs, but also I'm hearing from many folks at this moment in time who are seeing the catastrophic extreme weather events that are hitting Vermont again and again, and wondering sort of what is our bigger vision for building a more resilient Vermont and really shifting more aggressively to renewable energy sources. And I would really like us to be making sure as we're thinking about housing, we're building denser, more walkable downtowns, and also that we're investing in building renewable energy infrastructure in state, both for the purpose of reducing emissions and also for increasing our energy independence and making sure we have more control over energy costs moving forward for Vermonters.
Thank you, Chloe. Representative.
So I think the legislature did a wonderful job last session of really improving the targets for renewable energy standards. They're much more aggressive targets. They are, I think, going to challenge us to really kind of address emissions, and also I'm appreciative that Chloe mentioned the importance of building dense downtowns and allowing folks to have access to public transportation. Winooski has done an exceptional job of this. I think we are one of the best models in the state for both those things. And I would like to strengthen our EV network. There isn't a single charging station in our city. So I think just continuing to leverage some federal funding that really goes into rural development is a great opportunity for us.
Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the lightning round this time around. It's going to be just a yes or no question. We're going to go with you, Representative. Should private schools be funded with public dollars, yes or no?
No.
Okay, and Chloe?
No.
Okay. Do you support raising the age of family court jurisdiction, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Should biomass, rather, burning wood, play a role in emissions reduction strategies, yes?
No.
Or no?
No.
Okay. And do you support overdose prevention centers?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. And did Governor Scott overstep his authority by appointing Swenders, I don't know how to say the last name, as an interim education secretary?
He did.
Okay. Chloe?
Yes.
Okay. Where do you get your news? I don't even know why. Where do you get your news?
CCTV, of course, no. Print and social media.
Okay. Chloe?
Vermont Digger, 7 Days, Vermont Public, and New York Times and Washington Post, and Front Porch Forum.
Do you watch CCTV?
And CCTV.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Long list.
Do you ride the bus? That's a very important
Yes.
question. Okay.
I mostly bike, but I really appreciate the bus as a backup, especially when it's snowing hard and raining
You
hard.
do ride the bus. Okay, yes. What's your favorite ice cream in Vermont?
Offbeat Creamy at the Winooski Pool.
All right.
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
I have to agree. Offbeat Creamy, the place to be.
And I'm just going to give you a 30-second closing statement or comment if you have.
Remember to register to vote and vote early if you can. You can go to City Hall right now and get your ballot and do that so that you don't have to face the crowds on August 13th. I hope you'll consider re-electing me for your state rep, one of your 2 state reps. There are 2 open seats right now, and I'd be thrilled to have one of them.
Thank you. Chloe?
I just want to thank CCTV for organizing this program, and Daisy for your service to our state, and Romeo for moderating. Now's really the time for us to be taking bold action on these areas that are huge challenges in our state: housing, renters' rights, the climate emergency. And I really encourage you to reach out and share any ideas, questions, suggestions you have with me. You can feel free to reach out by email. It's chloe4winooski@gmail.com, or learn more about me on my website, chloe4winooski.org. Would love to hear from folks about their vision for Vermont and how we get there. And I hope that you'll consider voting for me in the August 13th primary.
Thank you both for being here, and thank you for your service, and thank you for choosing to serve as well. And for those watching on TV, thank you for tuning in to Town Meeting TV, and for the local coverage of candidates, local budgets, ballot items. You can find these and many like it on cctv.org/primary or on Town Meeting TV YouTube website as well. Don't forget to cast your ballot on the primary election day on or before August 13th, and then tune in to Town Meeting TV for the results and the recap of the show. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.